All right, Boker Tov. So today's daf is Chaf Hey. We pick up at the top of Chaf Hey, and we are discussing the issue. Well, the Mishnah deals with cases of a marriage that has not been fully complete, Erusin or Shomer Yabam, and that those cases the woman can go through the Sotah process in order to make her Sotah, Kinoi and the Stira, forbidden to her husband, but not in order to make her drink the water at the end. And we are going to pick up today. We did raise in the Mishnah important questions about the phenomenon about Beis Din representing the husband, and questions raised about what would have been the motivation for Beis Din to do that, and other questions about what type of evidence would have been necessary to make a woman lose her ketuvah if she wasn't a Sotah. And interestingly, both of those issues are going to be the central focus of today's stuff. Okay, so let's take a look, and that's really start with that exact, essentially that topic, 3 lines from the top, a brand new topic. So let's take a look. Ibailu, so they raised the following question. Overis aldas, a woman who transgresses the norm, meaning the standard practices of modesty of married women. Now, I want to just clarify what this is. There's a Mishnah in Ksuvos about Das Moshe and Das Yehudis. And the issue here is not that she is a sinner. The issue here is that her behaviors impact the marriage. So, for example, basically the Mishnah says that a woman who transgresses Das Moshe, biblical norms, laws, or Das Yehudis, or the practice of Jewish women, can be divorced without a ksuva. And the point, though, is, the Gemara, for example, says, what would be an example of Overis al Das Moshe? So it says a woman who, for example, doesn't go to the mikvah, or a woman who feeds her husband non-kosher food. What the Gemara does not say is a woman who is Machal Shabbos. Okay, a woman could be Machal Shabbos, that is between her and God. That is not a basis for the husband to divorce her. I mean, nowadays we might say, like, if you're going to have the TV on in the house on Shabbos, that impacts the nature of the home on Shabbos, right? Or if you're going to cook the food on Shabbos and I can't eat it. But that, okay, so there would be cases in which it would impact the marriage. But if a woman goes ahead, sorry to point out that it's about the woman here, but that's what it is. Anyway, not like men aren't Machal Shabbos either. Anyway, but if a woman goes ahead and decides that she's going to go outdoors and smoke or drive somewhere on Shabbos, that is not Das Moshe in terms of a basis for divorce, because that's just her sin. It's between her and God. That is not a basis, that does not impact the marriage. Okay, so it's a type of a transgression that affects their married life together in a significant way. Similarly, Overis Aldas means a type of a behavior that is seen to compromise the intimacy or the quality of their relationship. And specifically, it speaks about a number of behaviors that a woman could do in public, which basically are considered to be immodest, and therefore it sort of like winds up attracting the attention, the unwanted attention of other men. And so whether it is that she is flirtatious with other men, I mean, I'm sort of translating it into a contemporary idiom, because the Gemara talks about it, the Mishnah talks about just she like talks to strange men. With us, it's like, what? Like, she can't go ahead and say, like, excuse me, could you tell me, like, but okay, for ours, could you tell me which way to get to so-and-so street? Oh, you talk to strange men. But that for them, maybe the norms were a little different, or what would be considered problematic. But I think to translate it in a contemporary idiom, let's say she's being flirtatious with other men, or talks about her, behaving in a way about in public that she's nursing her baby, or she's knitting in public, now it's a breastfeeding in public, but anyway, ways in which we're seen as like, not just inappropriate, but something that basically is getting, like, gets the unwanted attention, unwanted from the husband's perspective, maybe from her perspective as well, but whatever, of other men. So one of them is, of course, going with her hair uncovered and so on. But these types of things, which basically, impact the way in which the intimacy of the relationship, the way in which the husband sort of feels that, doesn't sort of garner his jealousy or bring another man, practically or in somebody's imagination, into the relationship. So that's the type of situation, and we'll talk about it more when we get to Ksuvos, but that's the type of issues that are considered to be Overis al Das, okay, Das Moshe. That's the context of the idea of covering the hair and so on. So the Gemara is now going to say, so as you could imagine, that's not so different from the Sotah idea. The Sotah idea is something very concrete, right? If she committed adultery, there's no question she's forbidden to her husband. That's not a question about just divorce without a ksuva. Sotah is a woman that has suspected of that. But if that actually were true, she would be completely halachically forbidden. I mean, even now the Torah forbids her, the halacha forbids her to have sex with her husband on the basis of this suspicion, but it's based on the fact that sleeping with a man makes her forbidden to her husband. But even without that reality, right? If if she went into private with a man and she wasn't warned by her husband, or she was doing these things that are sort of in the same penumbra of this whole experience, but it's not making her a sotah because she didn't actually sleep with a man, or there wasn't that suspicion yet. Nevertheless, it's certainly in this category of overis saldas, right? I mean, it's the types of things that garner the husband's, that evoke the husband's jealousy and so on. So the question is, without making her forbidden to her husband, is it a basis of divorce? It would be a basis of divorce without a ksuva. That's overis saldas. Charlie, what did you want to say? You had a question? Okay, so let's take a look at the Gemara. So that was just to explain those two words. Ibayu, overis saldas, a woman who now crosses that line. So when we say that the husband can now divorce her, okay, interesting question we'll get to is, must he divorce her? Okay, but now let's just leave it as can. He can divorce her now without her ksuva because her behavior was inappropriate in terms of their relationship. Okay, does she require warning? Does he need to say to her, he or the basement, let's say he, need to say to her, if you do that again, I'm going to divorce you without a ksuva? Okay, or because maybe she wasn't even aware she wasn't supposed to do that, or maybe she was aware but she didn't realize it was a big deal, or she didn't pay attention to the consequences. So would we say that she needs warning or not for her to lose her ksuva? Let's see how the Gemara phrases the question. Me, I'm reading. Do we say kivan dover saldasi lo bai hasra? Look, bottom line, she acted in an appropriate way. It compromised their relationship. Okay, so she doesn't need warning. Or do we say she should? Why? Because maybe if she's warned, maybe she'll change her practices, which is interesting, which sort of frames it as, it's not like right now there's not a good enough basis, but it's sort of like, does she deserve it? Like, we didn't say, well, she was shogeg, she doesn't deserve it. It's not, no. In terms of the actions she did right now, this would be appropriate. But maybe, maybe we have a bigger picture type of an approach. We don't want to, we want to encourage, we don't want marriages to break up so quickly. We want to, we recognize that things often can be repaired, and not every mistake has to automatically lead to the most dire of consequences. If we say divorce without a ksuva, we are A, making it easier for the husband to divorce her, just practically, he won't have to pay, and B, we're communicating something about where essentially the rabbis are making this rule, are communicating that they think that she deserves to be divorced, right? So is that necessarily the healthiest thing? Right? Maybe the healthiest thing is let's try to repair the situation first. So again, it's a difference between whether in some objective way this would be appropriate and being deserved, and he'd be justified in some way to divorce without ksuva, but nevertheless, it's not necessarily the best thing from a big picture societal perspective. Dov had a question for you.
Framing this as a criminal matter, which is one of the
Correct. It's not the warning. It's not like you can't get punished without warning type of a thing. It's not a punishment, right? It's also another thing. It's more like it's a fault divorce. Okay, so if she was to fault, she did something to hurt the marriage, and she was at fault, right? So then the husband is free from the obligation to pay the ksuva because she's the reason why they're getting divorced. So that's sort of how it's a type of thing. You're right. It's not like a punishment of based. So that's why the Gemara didn't say like the hasra to make her amazed as opposed to a shogeg. It said because of these other concerns of like maybe we don't want to rush to a divorce.
But at least the way you framed it, I was still just asking. There's still some cases where we say just you're losing it, right? Like for instance, let's say two witnesses said we actually saw her commit adultery. We wouldn't say, oh well, maybe they can work it out because it's strength of the marriage. Right. It's better to try to see what you can do.
So because this isn't adultery, this is something that's more repairable. Besides the fact that there's just a halacha. The halacha is that she's forbidden to her husband. We can't do anything about that halacha. Okay, so here there isn't that halacha, so there's more to work with. Okay, but if you ask me also big picture, you could say some things we don't think are repairable, other things we are. And nowadays, I think we do think that some of those situations are repairable, right? Okay, and that becomes an interesting issue because, like, some people have been asking me about this: what happens if a woman admits to committing adultery and so on? Is there, but they don't want to get divorced, so they want to work it through. So there are ways of dealing with that. Okay, but anyway, from the Gemara's perspective, that's not an option. option. Okay, at least here it's not sort of seeing that as an option. Again, in halacha, there's where you sort of navigate that because you technically don't believe her, so unless there's real evidence to it and so on. Okay, but so even if we did want to repair it, there's the halachic status that can't be dealt with, and B, there are some cases that maybe are not repairable. Yeah.
Is there an element of subjectivity in this category? Because the husband could be, how do you measure his reaction?
Right. Well, clearly, if she's going to sue for her ksuva, he's going to have to bring evidence in court why he's not obligated to pay. So it's not just his say so. If he wants to get out of paying the ksuva, he's going to have to bring evidence that she was overis aldas. Okay.
You're asking if I understand, like, I could decide I don't want my wife crocheting, keep poking the shirt.
Right.
And you could decide it's no big deal that she's crocheting
Well,
the shirt.
Right, that's true.
like,
No, the Mishnah list has a list. The Mishnah has a list of objective criteria. Now, whether those change in different societies, like the Beratim Kol Adam or whatever, that might be, but whatever. But yes, it's not, it gets to some of this question. Is it all B'hakparat Debal?
Right. Let's say he doesn't care.
Right.
Then he wants to get out of paying for it too, and he says, I do care. Say that.
So we'll get to that. But bottom line is that more what our Gemara is going to look at today is even if she was overis aldas, can he sort of decide he's not makbid? But his ability to say he's makbid on something that we haven't identified as an objective standard obviously would not be fair, because then he could just arbitrarily make her lose the ksuva. She's entitled to the ksuva, so there has to be an objective standard on the basis of which that she would have to, that she could lose that. I do want to say something about the shogeg issue, and again about that it doesn't say, oh, well, she was shogeg, maybe it shouldn't be so bad. Because at the end of the day, you could say, okay, who cares whether she knew or didn't know? It compromised the relationship. Now, nevertheless, you could say, no, it compromises the relationship in a different way if you're not supposed to do certain behavior and you do it. Yeah. Like, if you don't know, what was so wrong? I was just whatever. But if no, actually, our standards are you don't do those types of things and whatever. So the sense about how much is the relationship compromised does sometimes impact whether the person is knowingly or unknowingly engaging in this type of behavior. It is interesting, it's something interestingly I haven't mentioned since the beginning of the Masechet, but it is interesting to ask about a question of what happens in a case of Sotah if she is a shogeg. Now, what would be a case of a shogeg if she's a Sotah? Well, let's say, I don't know, nobody ever told her that it was usher to sleep with another man. Okay, so, so you could say, Karav Lamezid, everybody should know that, be aware of that. So that's like an easier case to deal with, okay? But there's an interesting shuva, I'm trying to remember who wrote it, about a woman who basically, her husband was away, and a man came to, was passing through town, some charlatan, and he basically said that he was Eliyahu Novi, and he persuaded this woman to sleep with him, and she told her that if she would sleep with him, then that would produce the Mashiach. And so she believed him, and she believed she was supposed to sleep with him, and she had to sleep with him and whatever, and she did so. And then the question was, is she forbidden to her husband? Okay, that's not just Sotah, that's one who actually slept with another man. And I forget, I'd have to remember who wrote this tshuva, but it's not recent, it's gone back a few hundred years. Anyway, the posuk basically said that the pasuk doesn't focus on the intentionality of the sin. It says that there was a sense that actually was a wrong done to the husband, right, and a hurt to the relationship, and that's regardless of whether the action was done in innocence or not in innocence, to what the reality of that was in terms of her relationship to her husband. So that's interesting. So I think that's an interesting parallel. Like here, the Gemara does not say that, oh well, if she wasn't, maybe you need because otherwise it didn't impact the relationship in the same way. Now again, I think there's a big difference between sleeping with somebody without realizing how wrong it is, as opposed to, I don't know, having some conversation or knitting in the marketplace. But nevertheless, it's interesting that the Gemara doesn't frame it as it was not b'mezid and that's the issue. It frames it as okay, but there's bigger picture. Maybe we want to help repair the marriage. Yes. No, not if she's raped. But that's because that's completely not, that's not seen, there was volitional, but not with the intention of doing anything wrong, but it was volitional. And that's seen as a different sort of,
But I wonder if you meant, there might be situations mental,
right. If it's not intentional, right. If she's not of right mind or she's not willing, it's a different story, right? There was sort of willing, but it's not with feeling that, believing it was permissible.
Well, it's interesting because in that situation, there's also a wrong done to the husband in a sense, right? If someone's wife is
right. Right, but she's not the one that did the wrong to him. It's not, here it seemed like she wronged him. However much she felt she should have been doing it, she still, consciously, whatever, she wronged him, yes.
Does Dr. Hudit mean norms regarding women or norms established by
It seems like it means established by women. Shenohu b'not Yisrael is clearly, I think, what Rashi says it. So,
Right.
okay, so that's the question. So now we've gotten through 4 lines of Gemara. Okay, so, okay. So, but so interesting. Anyway, okay. No, she needs warning because maybe we want to help repair the situation first. We don't want to run to divorce without a ksuva. So Tashma, come in here. Arusa v'shomer yabam lo shotas v'lo notos ksuva. An arusa v'shomer yabam don't drink and don't get the ksuva. They because I would say lo shotot they can't be made to drink because it's not a full marriage. On the other hand, they're divorced without a ksuva. Mishtu de lo shasya, so they don't drink. But the first stage of the process, you do. That's why they don't get a ksuva. Hakinui mekanila. He does kinoi and makes her a sotah, and therefore he winds up divorcing her without a ksuva. Lamai. So why is he making her a sotah? Right? Why? What's the purpose of doing this kinoi and making her a sotah? Lav lafsida ksuvas. It must be to make her lose the ksuva. So why do you need to go through, hey guy, hey buddy, if your whole point is you're not going to be able to make your wife drink the water. She's only an arusa. If you want to make her lose the ksuva, so why do you need to go through this process? Just bring witnesses that she's going in private with other men, that she's going in seclusion with other men. You don't need your warning. You don't need any of that. The going in seclusion is clearly enough of an overa saldas, okay? So the fact that wasn't enough, the fact of her going into seclusion, that he needed to do the kinoi, shows that if she's going to lose her ksuva, there needs to be some warning. Okay, now it's interesting. It might not actually be the warning that turns her into a sotah, but the Gemara is sort of saying, regardless, it's not enough that she went into seclusion. Okay, so
Kinui assumes hatra here.
yeah, kinoi winds up becoming a form of hatra. Okay, so it says, so look, you see, the going in seclusion is not enough. Clearly, the only reason he would do kinoi would be to make her lose the ksuva. So the Gemara says, no. Amar Baye, lo love. No. There's other things that are accomplished. Maybe if she just went into seclusion, she'd lose the ksuva, but he's doing the kinoi because he wants to make her into a sotah. He wants to make her forbidden on him. Now, why does he want to make him forbidden on him? Because, well, maybe he feels like, he's so angry. Like it says, if you don't want to have sex with her, don't have sex with her. But I don't know. He's so angry at her, whatever. He wants to just impose this status on her. Put the big red letter S on her or samech or whatever, make her into a sotah. It's not just about the ksuva. That she would lose anyway. But he wants to make her forbidden on him. Okay. Rav Papa Amar Lashkosa Kishinasua. No. Actually, there would be opportunities that he could actually make her drink the water. He warns her when she's an arusa for the situation that now if she were to go into private after Nisuin, he would still, on the basis of that early warning, be able to make her drink. So he can't make her drink as an arusa, but if she went into seclusion afterwards, he could make her drink.
They can do the kinui and then they can have nisuin and get married.
Yes, but it can't be kinoi stira and nisuin because then he would have had sex with her after she had been a sotah. Then it wouldn't be v'nikaha ish me'avon. But it could be kinoi nisuin stira, and that should be a sotah. Yep. So why is he going through with the nisuin after the kinoi?
Yeah,
well,
right.
no, I'm just keeping my bases covered. Well, now we can get married. She's been warned, so it'll all be good. Okay. Anyway, so that's why he's doing it. Lashkosa kashi nisua kedetanya. Ein mekanim la rusa lashkosa kashi arusa. He can't do the make her drink while she's on arusa. Mekanim la rusa lashkosa kashi nisua. He could do it so if she goes in private when she's in a suah, then she could become a sotah on the basis of that. So you can't prove anything from that. She could have lost her ksuva just by going seclusion. The purpose of the kinoi was something else. Amar Rabbi, let's try again. Toshma. All these cases in the Mishnah where a woman is forbidden on her, where the marriage is forbidden but still binding. Okay, all these cases of the Isurei Lavim, where it's again a biblical prohibition but the marriage is binding. They don't drink and they don't get their ksuva. Now, Mishu delo shasya, so they're not being forced to drink. But the point still is that he can go through this process of kinoi. Now, again, the question is, ulamai, what's the purpose? Ila osran alav. Now you can't give the answer, oh well, he's warning her to make her a sotah to make her forbidden. No, he's already forbidden to. There's already a law for them to continue to have sex because she's a grusha or whatever the case might be, and he's a kohen. So that answer doesn't work. Elalav left sidan ksuvasan. So why it must be that the purpose of doing kinoi is to make him lose the ksuva, and it's not enough that she just went into seclusion. Okay, and you can't give the other answer. Both of the previous answers, it's a brilliant point. Both of the previous answers are not relevant. La'osra lav isn't relevant; she's already forbidden, and lashkosa kashi nisua isn't relevant because it's already nisuin. No, they're already nisuin, right? It's just that it's an isser grusha to a kohen. So what would be the purpose of kinoi if not to make her lose her ksuba? There's nothing else gained by
So we're
it.
trying to prove that therefore in a situation where she
Went into
loses her
seclusion.
ksuba, she needs hatra.
Exactly, because it wasn't enough that she went into seclusion. So exactly. So that's the point. All these cases, why do you need kinoi? She went into seclusion with a strange man. That should suffice to make her lose her ksufa.
Okay.
So Amarav Yehuda midiskrita. Lo, la'osra leboel kabal. No, and this makes more sense than la'osra love. He wants to make her into a sotah so that if and when they get divorced or he dies, she remains forbidden on the guy that she's suspected of committing adultery with. Okay, because a sotah, a woman who actually sleeps with another man, is forbidden on her husband and forbidden to continue to have sex with the man she slept with. And similarly, a woman who is a sotah in that state of being suspected is forbidden to have sex with her husband. And even then, if the husband died, if she remained divorced, if she remained a sotah, right, she is then forbidden to have sex with that guy. Actually, it's an interesting question. Let's say he makes her a sotah, does not get around to bringing her to the Beis HaMikdash, divorces her. She never has an opportunity to prove her innocence, right? Because she never brought her to the Beis HaMikdash. She can't do it now that they're divorced, and she remains forbidden on this other guy that she was suspected of. So, like, I don't know, right? Imagine that she actually had some flirtation with this guy, but didn't sleep with him. And now she's divorced. She actually wants to marry this other guy. Now she's forbidden because the husband made her a sotah and she doesn't have the opportunity. So, it's pretty interesting that he has this power to make her forbidden on this man, even if she didn't actually sleep with him.
But if they went through the whole thing and then she came out clean, then she can be with him, right?
Yeah, right, clearly.
There was nothing going on.
Exactly.
So that only kicks in if he makes her a sotah.
Right.
Not if he divorces her without a
Correct.
suspicion.
Correct. So that's what it's saying. If he just had suspicions and it was Oversel Das and he divorced her, she could go marry this other man. But he's saying to himself, I'm going to divorce her and make sure that she doesn't wind up marrying this guy. Like, I know that she's been flirting with her with her high school boyfriend, and whether she's having sex with him or not, I'm going to ensure she's never going to marry him. So I'm going to do this thing and warn her, and therefore I'll divorce her, and she won't be able to. So, right, I could have divorced her without her anyway, but now I'm making this guy off limits.
No,
Yeah.
Wouldn't the get have to free her absolutely?
She is totally freed from me. She's just not. You're saying she's not like muteret l'chol adam,
Right.
yeah, but not based on a connection to the husband. Yes.
There's something really interesting from like in the jurisprudence here. Usually you need warning that's connected to a certain outcome.
Yeah.
Here, the outcome is the same outcome, but what determines hatra or not is his motivation or his mindset.
What are you talking
right?
about? No. It's just a question about what. No.
In order to execute, for example, I need hatra. In order to do this, I need hatra. But here, it's dependent upon his mindset.
No, we're just trying to figure out what motivated him. The point is, and bring it as evidence. We're trying to say it must be that you need hatra, because or else why would he have bothered to do hatra? And the answer is no. You don't need hatra for her to lose her ksuva. Why is he bothering to do hatra? For a different outcome, for the outcome of to make her forbidden on the husband. But at the end of the day, his motivation on the guy, but his motivation doesn't matter. You say what if you want to frame it another way? Don't say why is he doing it. Say what is achieved by the hatra. What does hatra accomplish? It doesn't necessarily accomplish her losing her ksuva. That was already achieved. What it accomplishes is it makes her forbidden on the other guy. Okay, so that's what it accomplishes. That's why the kinoi plays a role here, and the kinoi is not necessary for making her lose her ksuva. So we still haven't proven whether you need hatra to make a lose her ksuva. I'm Rabbi Chanina Misura Tashma coming here. The Elusha based in Mekanan. Now we're going to move on to the based in. Mishanit Charesh Ba'Allah. Her husband became a deaf mute. O Nishtateh, or he became like insane, mentally ill. O Shaya Chavush B'Beit Hasurin, or he's in prison. The Lo Ashkosa Amru. And now the Mishnah spells out why is based in doing this. It is not. They're not doing it to enable him to make her drink. Ella. But for the purpose, lepos la miksuvasa, to make her lose her ksuva. It didn't say they're doing it to make her usher to the husband, right? That could have said that, right? It didn't, it said they're doing it for the purpose of making her lose her ksuva. So that's pretty clear. It sounds like there would be no other way she could lose her ksuva other than this. So shmamina by hasra shmamina. So the question is, why did they have to do that? If all they're trying to do is make her lose her ksuva, just get witnesses that she's in seclusion with another man. So you see, that would have not been enough to make her lose her ksuva. So again, we were speculating yesterday, well, maybe the basin is trying to grease, what do they, skid, what's the phrase, grease the skids?
Grease the skids.
Maybe they're trying to grease the skids to try to get them to divorce by making her usher to him, and by making her usher to him, it's just ensuring that they'll get divorced. But the Gemara says, but you can't speculate about that, or you can't say that's the reason, because it specifically says they're doing it for the sake of making her lose her ksuva. So it's identifying that is what's accomplished by them doing this, which makes it sound like otherwise she wouldn't lose her ksuva. Well, since why not? Isn't there evidence? Just get evidence if she went into seclusion. So you see that a woman who's over saldas, it's not sufficient. There needs to actually be a form of warning. Now, again, that warning doesn't have to be the type of a warning that makes her a sotah, right? Because if you say, I don't want to see you talking to strange men, she doesn't become a sotah. That's also an over saldas. Okay, but whatever the over saldas is, it needs a warning in order for her to lose her ksuva. Yes.
I wonder if we can't extend that the baby and the husband who's out of it in whatever way, because he's not around to have a suspicion,
Right.
like based on that motion.
Right.
That like you need to like I don't know that you can have another situation.
I'm sorry, so what are you saying?
Because this is the difference between in the other situations there's a husband there who could be
Right.
and without warning tell her.
So that's going to be the next line of the Gemara. Excellent. So that's the next line of the Gemara. Let's take a look. So the Gemara says like this. It says, the kulu my time aloami meha. So why don't we just start with this? This was such a good proof. It explicitly says lafsida ksuvasa, which makes it clear that there was no other way for her to lose her ksuva. Of course, the nice thing is this allowed us a build-up. Anyway, fine. Doesn't matter. But it gives the Gemara an opportunity. It gives the Gemara an opportunity to make Jenna's point. So it says, no. Dilma shani hasam the lesla aimsa the baal klal. No, because you could say there she doesn't lose her ksuva without warning because her husband isn't around. So naturally, her behavior will be a little bit more loose. She'll take less care of her behavior and so on. And therefore she cannot, it's an interesting, which way would you have argued that? But it's saying you could argue that therefore doing this behavior is not as bad because it's not so much in defiance of her husband because her husband isn't around. So therefore, in this case, to make the behavior worse, she needs the warning. But in cases where her husband is around and she normally would be more constrained and she still does this, then that's so bad that even without warning. So you could have made that distinction. We don't say that, right? Okay, exactly. Okay, so now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Ibailu. So that was question number one. Does she need warning for a vessel? That's the answer is yes. What's really fascinating is, right, we're going to learn in Ksuvos a whole parak that focuses on, or a section of a parak that focuses on Overes al Das. And this basic question, which is, how do you prove, what type of evidence or warning or whatever isn't in Ksuvos? It's here. Okay, so this is really like a necessary, I mean, we know why we're discussing it here, but it's almost like a necessary clarification of a sugya in Ksuvos. Okay, Ibailu, they raise the following question. Overes al Das v'ratza ba l'kaima. This is almost a more important question, which also shockingly isn't in Ksuvos. This woman is acting in this way, behavior which is seen to be as inappropriate, violating norms of modesty and so on. Is the husband, if he says, it's okay with me, or if it's not okay with me, but I'm not interested in divorcing her on the basis of this, okay? Is he allowed to do this, or do we say this is an unhealthy marriage? Like, either we're concerned for your marriage or concerned for the general marriages in society, and we do not want to allow this type of a marriage to remain as seen as acceptable, and we are going to demand that you guys get divorced. Okay, so that's the question. Do we say b'kfeidet ba'al tala rachmana v'halo kapid? It's an interesting case, tala rachmana, because it's like echoing a Sotah case, but this is not exactly Sotah. Do we say it's about the husband's like sort of being kfeida? What's a good English word for kfeida? Not concerned, but his like what bothers him. And no, not anxiety. How do they translate that? Kfeida, the things that he's makbid on, that he's like insistent on. What? Objection. Okay. It's a little more than objection. It's like deep down, it bothers me. Like it finds it objectionable. Okay, that's maybe a little bit better. Okay. Anyway, but it's in fact the husband not wanting it, and being upset about it. The hollow copied, he's not upset about it. So bottom line is this just entitles him to divorce her without a ksuva because she has wronged him and it's a false divorce. So it allows him to do so because if it bothers him, okay, if it impacts the marriage. But if it doesn't bother him or whatever, he's not forced to end the marriage. Oh, even to copied. Or do we say, that's a funny phrase, since it bothers him, it bothers him. You just said it didn't bother him. So what Rashi says is no, that since it should bother him, it matters. Okay, which again, you could read that in two ways. You could read that he might say it doesn't bother him, but like deep down, we know that it does. And we're going to say that this is unhealthy for this marriage to continue, right? Or do we say, or another way of saying it is again, like, no, actually, this is unhealthy because for society, because we don't want to be sending a message that these types of behaviors are acceptable. Okay, so
something that we deem objectionable to anybody.
Exactly. It's an objectionable behavior, and therefore, whether it's objectionable to him or not, we need to object to it. Again, it's so fascinating, right? Because obviously for us, some of this is so bizarre. Like it's very, it's very, I don't know what the right phrase is, paternalistic or controlling, like that the court system would decide whether couples should remain married or not remain married. But, hello, I mean, they're going to decide if a woman's a sotah, if a woman's, whatever. Halacha does determine like whether this marriage, can continue or not, and Beis Din gets involved in it and so on. So here, even though there's not a halachic reason that she's objectively forbidden or that the marriage is objectively forbidden, like a Kohen and a Grusha, Beis Din sees that their role is to, play this type of a role in society.
Never get involved in who can get married.
Okay, it's a little bit of a different point, but I take your point. Yes.
Well, in secular law, at least in the United States, the idea that a couple can simply agree to get divorced is really something in the last two generations.
Yes, that we might. That's the opposite. That we might.
It is the opposite. That's
that
right.
That we require. That do we have an idea of no fault divorce, or do we have such an investment in sort of marriage and so on that we don't allow it to be easily dissolved, right? So that's the idea of fault or no fault divorce, which is true. It's like we're making a judgment of what's healthy for society, and therefore we're making it easier or harder for them to get out of it. But this is we're making a judgment what's better for society, and therefore we're going to force them to get out of it. So it's a little bit. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, we make. Some of these rules, are for the betterment of society. Anyway, that's the question. Are we asking because deep down we think it's in his best interest and he's just not being honest with himself? Or is it more of a broader societal point?
So making him psychologically lacking, almost in a similar way to the deaf mute lacking.
Oh, that's interesting.
Good, yeah.
Like the Beis Din taking the role of the deaf mute. Here he's like, we're going to have to step in for you because you're, you're not being able to be objective here. You don't realize how much your marriage is being destroyed right now, or whatever the case might be. Yeah.
Tom was making any kind of statement about, like, when we say something's like makpid or not makpid, in general, it's a religious value. And it's casting aspersions on the possibility that someone need not be makpid about the behavior.
I don't think we can generalize. I mean, in this context. Yeah, in this context. I mean, the Gemara in Ksuvas discusses that about what, I mean, in a way, we sort of saw it before also about whether it's a mitzvah lakanos or a shus lakanos. Like, what, you could ask the same thing about parenting, right? What's the right balance between being strict and being tolerant, and at what stage, Right. Yeah, so that's the questions that it's asking. Okay, maybe parenting isn't what?
The Gemara also assumes not societal norms, but personal norms. For example,
Right, exactly. Okay, so it says Toshma. So that's what we want to know. If he's okay with it, are we okay with it? The Eusha Beis Din Mekanin Lehen, Beis Din steps in. So there he goes, whoever made that point. David Mishanit Charesh Bala. So Beis Din is going to step in. If the husband can choose to be okay with it, so of the Beis Din midi why will the Beis Din step in? The husband might get better, or he might get freed from prison, and then they'll have worked against his interests. So how can they necessarily step in and act on behalf of his interests if this might not be his interests? He might not want this. So the Gemara says no. Stama de milsa. No, we could say even though the norm would be even though since he violated these norms, it is in his interest. So just because we're saying that that he could choose to be okay with it, we could still act on his behalf based on what is the norm. So that doesn't prove one way or the other. Okay, so we don't know the answer to that, whether Ratzah L'Kaima Mekaima or not, but based on the ongoing discussion, we're going to implicitly answer that question. At this stage, we don't yet know the answer. Ibailuhu. Now we have the following question. Baal Shemachal al Kinuyav Machol o Eino Machul. Okay, now, here, this is a question that actually is not about Overis Aldas, or could be, but it's more immediately about the question of a Sotah. The husband is Makana, his wife. Okay, and then he says, you know what? Forget about that kinoi. I don't want to get you in trouble. I understand whatever. Sometimes your business, you have to go into his private office, whatever. Forget a hotel, whatever. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I mochel on the kinoi, and then she goes ahead and she goes in private. Can he remove the kinoi, or once he made it, she becomes a Sotah? Just to make it a little bit more challenging, can he remove the kinoi after she went in private? Okay, so she became a Sotah and says, you know what, I retroactively retract my kinoi. Okay, so can he do it? Okay, but first let's deal with the easier case, even before she goes in private. What's the story? Now we understand the phrase Talarachmana, because now we're dealing with the Sotah category, not with the Overis Aldas category. Ultimately, it's because he was jealous, he was upset, he objected, and when he stops objecting, the whole thing falls off. Okay, Machle the Kinuyav. Oh, Dilma, what do we say? No, he warned her he can't retract it. Now, it doesn't exactly explain what the other side is. The other side could just be, it's a formal rule. It might have started to be about your objection, but once you've created facts on the ground, you're not empowered to retract. But more interestingly, we could go back to points we made at the beginning of the Masechet, which is how much is it sort of following the biblical model of V'kineh ishto, and it's all an outgrowth of his jealousy and hakpada and objection, etc., or how much is it based on how the Gemara has made it a legal issue, brought in witnesses and a court and raglayim l'davar, and there's actually objective ground for suspicion. So we could say it's very nice that it has stopped bothering you, but the fact that you warned her shows that there was something there that was upsetting you, and the fact that she went ahead and went in private, once again, that creates a raglayim l'davar, and it doesn't matter if it's no longer bothering you. You know, we're taking over from here. These are objective realities of raglayim l'davar. So that's, I would say, maybe the other way of thinking about it, right? How much is it about him, and how much is it about just creating raglayim l'davar, right? An interesting question is, you know, what happens if, for example, let's take another case, a woman is raped, or somebody is, I don't know, assaulted, and they refuse to press charges. So technically speaking, who cares that they refuse to press charges? It was a crime against, you know, it was a crime of the state, right? Whether it's not this person gets to decide, it's not just, you know, because it's about him, right? It's, I mean, yes, a violence was done to this person, but whether the person itself wants to be mochel or not, the state could decide to go ahead and press charges regardless. Right? Where that?
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. It's just that it's very hard, because if the person isn't showing up in court and testifying for whatever, okay, so you could say it doesn't matter. You know, it's not about your hakpada, right? It's about crime against society, right? So that's what. Right, exactly. So that's anyway, it's a fascinating question about whether he can choose, you know, to be mochel or not. How much is it about the raglayim l'davar and the objective reality, and how much is it about his, you know, what was done to him and his objection and so on. Tashma, this is such a great dot. The Elu shebesin mekanim lehen. Nisha nitcharesh ba'ala oni shtato sheyachovish v'beis asurin. Okay, fine. So Basin's going to step in and do it for him. Via Marta, Baal Shemachal Kinuyev Machol, but if the husband can retract his own kinoi, this thing that Basin did is considered to be his kinoi. They're seen as operating on his behalf. Okay, so now they did it for him. So therefore what? So Avin and Midi, the Asi Baal Machile, well, how would we do something that the husband could retract? Why not? Actually, that's great. We'll do it. If he doesn't like it, he can retract it. But the Gemara's concern is that will undermine the authority of Beis Din. We'll have done it, and he'll negate what we did. So the Gemara says, we're not concerned about that. Normally, it's funny. We're doing it because we assume it's what he wants, and then he'll go along with it because he'll generally go along with what we do. So
generally, the presumption will be that 9 times out of 10, a person won't want to.
But that's not what the Gemara said. No, the Gemara could have said, Stama de Milsa, a husband is makbid, and he won't be mochel. But it said, Stama de Milsa, he'll go along with it because he'll follow our lead. That's what it's saying. He'll follow. So it's like a little bit circular, right? We're empowered to do it because we assume that a normal husband would want to be mochel. And once would want to be mochel, would want to be mekane. And once we step in, then even if he was in that middle camp, he'll most likely follow our lead anyway, so we don't have to.
He'll agree.
Right.
Well, it's not like he'll accept it, even though grudgingly.
I understand. I didn't say grudgingly.
Okay.
Following the lead. That's what masking is.
All right.
We led the way and he followed. Okay? It doesn't say. So anyway, so it is interesting. I mean, that is how things work, right? It is true that that's the norm, but even if he was ambivalent, once we stepped in, that'll help push him into that norm. Okay? So anyway, so we don't know the answer. We don't know the answer if he can be mochel on the kinoi, and we don't know the answer if, what was the other question about? If he can choose to just keep on living with her regardless. Was that the other question? Wait, where are we? We meet right. Okay, right. So now it says like this. Where are we? Tashma, come in here. So when they remember when he's bringing you to Beis Din, you give the two scholars to accompany them so that they won't have sex. But if he could reverse his kinoi, and now we're assuming even after she became a sotah, so why are we so concerned that they might, have the Yitzhar get the better of them and they decide to have sex? They have a way that they could actually do it beheter. So go ahead. Remove your kinoi, have sex, save us from the whole problem of the whole proceedings. Yishkoyach. So why are we so concerned to protect against that? Actually, there's a heter way of doing it. So the Gemara says, yeah, actually, maybe that's why we're sending them with the Torah scholars. Why are we dafka sending them scholars? To Gemiri, because they know the halacha. Then they can realize that if it looks like they're interested in having sex, they'll tell him how to do it in a heter way. So they'll tell him, fine, just remove your kinoi. So it's not that we're trying to prevent it at all costs. We're actually trying to make sure that whatever decision they make is the right decision. Okay, so we still don't know if he can revoke his kinoi. Tashma, come in here.
I don't understand. I thought we have just proved.
No, how do we prove?
Why? Because the Talmidei Chachamim can say you can.
So there's two ways of explaining it. Either they go with him to ensure that he doesn't have sex, or they don't have sex under any circumstances. Even if he revokes his kinoi, they tell him that he's not allowed to, or they go with him to instruct him how he can by removing his kinoi. Tashma, the Amar Rabbi Yoshaya. Shlosha dvarim, 3 things. Sachli zeira me'anchi Yerushalayim. Zeira of the people of Yerushalayim whispered to be 3 things. Number 1, Baal shemachal kinui of machal. There you go. The husband can revoke his kinui. Okay, and then we're going to discuss in a minute even after she becomes a sotah. Number 2, v'zakin mamrei sharatu beis din limchalo mochum lo. If the beis din wants to forgo the zakin mamrei, the person who acts in defiance of the court and paskins opposite of the court, they can forgo. Now, this is really such a great comparison, because defying the authority of the court is not just the kavod of the personal kavod of the court that they could be mochel. It's about the authority of the institution. The institution's authority is being undermined by that. There's this defiant person paskining in opposition and nobody is doing anything about it. So there you have to, since when is it the personal decision of the court, right? That's an institution that has to be protected. So you could ask the same thing about the marriage. Since when is it the personal decision of the husband? The institution of marriage has to be protected, right? Obviously, there's a big difference. One is a court for all of society. One is their own personal marriage, even though other people might look at their marriage and learn from it, right? So this is the question. How much is it about the particular people involved? How much is it about the institution? So he's saying in all these cases, you could be mochel. Mochel on the kinoi, mochel on the zakin mamrei, and ben sorah morah sheratzav imo limcho mochlin lo. And ben sorah morah, they could be mochel. How much is it about they personally have been rebelled against? And how much is it about undermining the institution of, parenthood, of the authority of parents, right? So he's saying all of those things, if the personal people involved are mochel, we don't step in to protect the institution. So the Gemara says, when I came to my colleagues in the south, they agreed with me the two, the parents and marriage, which are more private institutions. Again, everybody in society might engage in it, but each instantiation is private. There's not one for all of society. But not for Zakin Mamre. That therefore, you should not allow there to be, there's got to be one final authority, one Supreme Court, and that has to be protected for all of society. There's one court for all society. It's not their personal hakpada. Such a great question. How much is it protecting the institution? Or how much is it about the people involved? Now, the interesting thing is that in the Torah, the Ramban points this out, that 4 places, right there in Parshas like Shoftim, Kitetse, etc., or no, it's Re'eh and Shoftim. Anyway, 4 places, the Torah says, "V'hanisharim yishma'u v'yira'u," which means that the punishment is not so much because of the gravity of the crime, but it's in order for protecting the institution in society and that everybody else learn a lesson. And you know what those 4 places are? Zakin Mamre, Ben Sorah Moreh, which is the whole question. What did the Ben Sorah Moreh do that's so bad? Ramban's answer is, he didn't do anything that was so bad, but he's threatening the institution of the authority of parents, and that has to be protected in society. Eidim Zomimim, that are undermining the court system, right? And they're allowing the court to be perjured or whatever, and we have to protect the integrity of the court. And the last one is, I think it's what? Is it Ir Nidachas or is it Is it Ir Nidachas or I think it's like the or is it a Navi Sheker? It might be a Navi Sheker. Maybe a Navi Sheker, which is basically God's authority. Who speaks on behalf of God, right? So anyway, so all of those are about protecting those institutions of authority. The one thing that's not in that list, of course, is the one thing that the Torah makes highly subjective about Sotah, right? V'kineas ishto. It's all very much about him and his jealousy. So if you were asking me, I would have said, al achas hoduli, al shtayim hoduli. Like by Sotah, it should be obvious that it's about hakpada debal, right? By these other 2, maybe it is more broadly about the institution. Anyway, such a great question.
But they did whisper to him that the Baal could be.
Yeah, they were okay with the Baal, but they were also okay with the case of Ben Sorah Moreh.
Fine.
Okay.
Why is there never touched?
No, there isn't. So the Gemara says, Mashma Mina, Baal Shemachal, you see, he can't revoke it.
It's so contemporary, right? The whole Supreme Court argument is about the institution of marriage.
Exactly. Right, about the personal rights of whatever. Yeah, exactly. Very good point. Okay, Shema Mina. So good, we've proven it. Okay, now the Gemara says, Poligba, now that we've proven that you can revoke it, even for the laws of Sotah, we're no longer talking about Overis Aldas. Okay, Pligiba Ravach of Ravina, Ravach and Ravina debate. Chadam or Kodem Stira, Machul, Stira Ena Machul. That could only be before she goes in private, because then even the going in private loses its meaning once he's retracted. But after she's gone in private and you've got the whole Raglayim Ladavar, etc., you can't revoke. Then it becomes an objective reality. It gets into the court system, as it were. That makes to me a lot of sense. The other says, he can even revoke it even after stira, which again goes back, like I said, to the first question of the first Mishnah. How much is this all about the husband's jealousy and schlepping his wife? And how much is this about Raglayim Ladavar and a case of Beis Din? So this approach says even after she becomes a Sotah, he can just stop the whole proceedings and revoke everything. Okay? So the Gemara says, it makes a sense that after she goes in private, he can no longer revoke it. Mimai, how do you know? Think about the response to Rabbi Yossi. The time you turn to Brisa, we saw this before. Rabbi Yossi Omer, we don't need to send chaperones when they're going to the Beis Din. We can trust the husband not to have sex with her on the way. When she's a nida, they're able to sleep together in the same room, and we're not afraid of sex, and we assume he'll control himself. Sotah shiblav lo kol shkein. How much more so will he control herself? He control himself here, which is it's actually the opposite. He'll be less restrained because it's less severe. But how much more will we be prepared to believe him? In a lesser matter. If we're prepared to believe him in a weighty matter, we're prepared to believe him in a lesser matter. Okay, that's what he said. Amrulo, and they said back to him, no, Ima Benida Shekain Yesh Laheter. By a nida, but when she's a nida, he'll restrain himself because they'll be able to sleep together again, soon enough. Tomer b'Sotah she'ein leheter, but by Sotah he won't restrain himself because she'll never be able to sleep together. And now the Gemara says, 1 minute, if he has a way of revoking her whole status by being mochel on it, so he'll also be able to restrain himself. He'll say, I don't have to sleep with her now. I don't have this urgency. If I ever want to sleep with her later, I could just choose to revoke her status. So he won't feel an urgency. Okay? He could always revoke his kinui. It seems clear that once she has that status, the husband is out of it. Now it becomes a matter for the court. So it's great. So you see that he can't. So what's great is we actually say, is it about the husband's jealousy or is it a matter of the court? We say, yeah, that transition happens after the stira. He warns her. She goes into stira with until that point. It's all just what's going on in his mind, right? But then she goes into private, into seclusion, and there are 2 witnesses. Then we've created an objective reglaim l'davar. Then we, as the court, step in and say it's no longer about you. Like we're going to now take over, and it doesn't matter if you're mochel or not.
What about the previous opinion that the Torah scholars accompanying them?
So that would be right. So why did it have to be Torah scholars? You mean?
Because they could.
No. So now we're not saying that it's not that they would advise him how to get around it. They would just stop him from having sex regardless. Right. Yeah. This is the conclusion that he can that he can revoke before stira. He can't revoke after stira. Okay, so the Gemara says like this: Mesu balein. Let's turn the page because there's so little on the next page. Mesu balein achelo shasu beis Shammai Yomi. So here the question is: the husband died before they had a chance to drink. Who collects the ksufa? The woman, or does the woman collect the ksufa? Or does it remain the man's? Right? Due to nobody's fault, it is she can't go ahead and prove her innocence. And what do you call it? And now it's time for the ksufa to be collected. The husband died. Okay, so who collects it? So the Gemara says, does she collect it? So Beit Shammai says she collects it, and Beit Hillel says she doesn't collect it. But my committee, what's the debate? Since the ksuva is a document that's standing for collection, she's entitled to collect it. It's like it's already collected, which means if she has an outstanding IOU, which is the ksufa, an outstanding debt to her, it's like she's in possession of the property. And if he wants to prove that he doesn't have to pay it, he has the burden of proof. So here it's quite interesting. You might have said, what do you mean? The fact that she's a sotah means he's entitled to divorce her without a ksuva. But the answer is no, because actually, ultimately, it's rooted in the question of did she commit adultery or not? And that was a question that we could have resolved had you lived long enough, that there was a possibility of resolving. So it's interesting. The way to determine, you didn't have to frame it this way, but the way to determine is she entitled to the ksuva is not the question, is she a sotah right now and forbidden to her husband, but it's the question of did she commit adultery? And therefore, Beit Shammai says, well, she has a presumption of being in possession or like having, of the money that's owed her. And if you want to say she's not entitled to it, you have to prove that she committed adultery. Okay? Beit Hillel salvi, and Beit Hillel says the other way. Shomid legavo slav kagavo idami. No. It's still not, he's still considered to be the muhzak, the one in possession. The burden of proof is on her. So she has to prove that she didn't commit adultery. And since she can't do that, then she does not collect her.
They have that machlok with dinim mamonot independent.
Yeah, so these huge tosasim are trying to navigate other sugyot that don't exactly match up with this.
Huge.
I understand. So you can read through these huge tosasim that try to say it's not so simple. The circumstances make a big difference when we would and wouldn't say this. And these tosasim navigate all those different sugyot to say, it's not a simple black and white type of a question.
Sure.
Exactly. Now, Muveret Chavera. See this? We're going to finish the daf. Okay, so the final halacha is a woman who is pregnant, and then the husband died, or she's nursing and the husband died, and a man marries her. He's not allowed to marry her within the first 2 years of the child's, till the child is 2 years old, so that he shouldn't. So he shouldn't be disregarding the welfare of the current child, and that she'll get pregnant and won't be able to give the right care to the current child. So that's the restriction of marrying a woman that is pregnant or nursing another man's child. Now, and the relevance of the Mishnah was that if they're in that relationship, can he make her drink the sotah water or not? Because they're not supposed to be married, but it's not exactly the same like a negative prohibition. So, right, is that enough of a legitimate marriage that he can make her drink the sotah water? That was the relevance. But now we're going to look at the issue of muberet chavero. So, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Barvua, machlokes be'akara v'zekena. This debate, because if you might remember, there was the other position in the Mishnah, I think it was Rabbi Linzer, who said that, I'm sorry, I jumped to the Muberet case, but the Gemara actually right now is focusing on an easier case, on the case about, let's say the woman is not able to have kids. So according to the Chachamim, well, this isn't a viable marriage. He has to divorce her. And therefore, because of that, he can't make her drink the sotah water because they need to get divorced, because he needs to have a mitzvah to have kids. And Rabbi Linzer says, what do you mean? He can always just marry another woman.
Yeah.
So why are you calling this not a viable marriage? So that was the debate about, is it when she's not able to have kids, is that considered a legitimate viable marriage that he can make her drink the sotah water? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Rabbi Barfua, machlokas ba'kar v'zakena. The debate is a woman who is like a sterile, infertile, or elderly. Aval islandess, a woman who is born in a way that she sort of never, from birth, never had the ability to have children, like the Gemara describes in very male characteristics or whatever. Maybe she maybe didn't have a uterus or other types of things. Fundamentally, was not from the birth, was not able to have kids. In that case, then everybody would agree she doesn't drink. And it's not because whether he needs to divorce her or doesn't need to divorce her. For a different reason, she's not in the parsha of Sotah. Shenemar v'nikasav v'nizrael zara, because it ends by saying she'll be able to bear seed. Nisha darka lahazvi. It only includes women that are in the parsha of having kids. So an akara, when she was younger, a Yizukane, when she was younger, she could have kids. An akara is seen as as some type of not an intrinsic problem to her very nature. It's a medical condition. You can always daven, exactly. But an islandess, that's her whole category, is somebody who can't have kids, and therefore she's excluded from the category of drinking of a sotah. So there's nothing to do with whether he should be divorcing her or not divorcing her. She's fundamentally excluded. Yatza zo she'ein darka lehazriya. Okay, and we will end with that now to continue that on Shabbos.
Rabbi, isn't this a case where there's jealousy without possibility?